delicious.
Well, family, trust me when I say this is the best meat pie I've ever made. Please watch to the end so you can make this amazing one for the holidays. You're just gonna love it. I have here some beef flap that I've cut into little strips, more like almost diced. I'm actually trying to recreate a memory from childhood. The meat pie that AGC, like Obuasi Sports Club, used to serve looked like this, so I actually cut it into little pieces. Instead of using regular ground beef, I'm going to have it in these pieces, just like about that. Some are tiny, not very consistent, but I tried. And I have here some onion that I have diced. This is about 2 cups. I have 1 cup of carrot, which is also diced. I also have a cup of potatoes, also diced. I'm going to use just a little bit of cornstarch just to thicken my filling. I have some white pepper. I'm going to use some salt. And I'm going to use 1 Maggi tablet. You can use any bouillon of choice. This is what I prefer. I'm going to pour about 2 tablespoons of oil, maybe a little less. Once my oil is hot, I'm going to add my beef in there. I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of my white pepper, about a teaspoon of salt. I also have some ginger garlic paste made. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of that in here. It is just not the same without that in there. I've broken up my cube. I'm going to add that as well. Now I'm going to stir this all. It is beginning to actually look like I'm going to get what I'm trying to achieve. I'm also going to add my diced onions. Stir it all together. I'm going to pour my potatoes in here. So I have some boiling water. I'm just going to pour some over it. And I'm just going to cover. Just let it sit for a while before I add it to my meat. I am already happy with how the pieces are looking. So instead of ground beef, we're going to have actual pieces of meat here in our meat pie. Going to cover briefly for it to cook through even more. Checking on my potatoes about 3 minutes later. It is softening up. It's losing much of its starch. I'm going to just strain this and add it into my meat to cook through. Potatoes going to join the party at this point. Drained of all its juices and hopefully some of the starch, which won't be bad in here anyway because you're actually going to add some cornstarch to give you that slurry kind of vibe in your filling. So this is a little bit yellowish because I used the Yukon Gold potatoes. Normally I would use russet, but I still have a lot of that in here, so no need going to buy a different kind of potatoes. I'm going to cover so the vapor can cook my potatoes through. Okay, potatoes have been here on low heat for about 2 minutes. I'm going to stir because you really don't want to burn your filling. And now I'm going to add my diced carrots as well. See such gorgeousness. I'm going to cover this for about another 2 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to take about a teaspoon of my cornstarch, just about this much. And I'm going to mix it with about 2 tablespoons of water. Very light consistency. And I'm going to add that onto my meat and veggies. I'm going to pour this here into my meat. Doing beautifully. Potato is soft, but not all the way soft. But remember, you're going to bake the pie, so you don't want it to be overcooked. I'm going to add my cornstarch mix here to help give me a little bit of some slurry in here. Picking up my sauce or my filling. You should be the one holding the spoon to feel that quick change in texture and feel. It feels thick, and now you're short of filling in your meat pie. That is just going to come out so good. Perfection. Just look at that. And on that note, our pie filling is done. I'm just going to turn off my stove, let this cool down before we actually put it in our meat pie. To make my pie crust, I have 500 grams of all-purpose flour. I also have 3/4 cup milk. This is 2% milk that I have here. You could just also mix some milk with water, or if you don't want it too rich, you could just use chilled water. I have an onion. I'm going to grate just a piece of that into my crust. I have some butter. This is 227 grams. For your perfect pie crust, you want your butter to be half the weight of your flour. So I have 500 grams flour, and I'm going to add my 227, which should have been actually 250, but it's perfect, a little bit richer. And I have some salt. I'm using 1 teaspoon salt for my 500 grams flour because I have salted butter, and some nutmeg. That nutmeg is what put the onion in your meat pie. So add that, please. In a mixing bowl, I'm going to combine my flour, salt, and nutmeg. To that, I'm going to add my butter, which I'm going to first cut into pieces. Preferably, you want to cut them into cubes or as small as you possibly can, while at the same time ensuring that you do not apply too much heat from your hand, the warmth of your hands. You want this butter to get into your flour still chilled. To make a perfect pie crust, your butter has to be chilled and not anywhere close to being room temperature. Now that I have everything together, I'm going to mix it. I'm using my mixer. You can use your hand, or if you have a pastry maker, a handheld one that you can just use to help cut through the butter and mix everything, you can use that as well. So I'm going to mix until all the butter is very well combined and my flour starts to look like it has crumbs. It's almost going to look like when you have crumbles, because that fat in the butter is going to introduce a little bit of moisture to your flour mixture, and you're going to see it starts to crumble. My butter is very well mixed in here. You can start seeing the crumbs. I'm just going to grate some onion in here. If you are making a big batch, you could definitely just blend some onion and put it there. That's what I typically do. But all I need for this 500 grams mixture is about a teaspoon or 2. Remember that your filling is also very rich. It has a lot of onions in it, and it's going to definitely come, the aromas and flavors is going to come into the crust when you bake. So this is pretty much all I need, and I'm going to mix it up again. From Kwankyewaa's kitchen, delicious, delicious, delicious. Once your grated onion is all mixed up in your mixture, you want to gradually add your milk. The milk has to be chilled, and put it in gradually until your beautiful dough is formed. Dough is perfect. It's already smelling amazing. The butter, you smell the nutmeg, you also smell, of course, that onion in there. You know right away that this meat pie is just going to be perfect. Now you just want to roll everything onto a rolling board. So you're going to transfer your dough onto a board. Please try not to apply too much of your hands to it, because the warmth of your hand is going to make the butter melted, and you want this dough to be chilled, so you don't want it to end up being warm. I'm going to shape this into a ball, and if you really want to start rolling it out now, you can go ahead and do that, but it's easier sometimes to work with your dough when it's still chilled. The filling is still a little hot or maybe warm. I have errands to run as well, so I'm going to actually chill this. I'm going to wrap my dough with cling film, leave it in the refrigerator, and then when we come back, we're just going to roll it out and bake our pies. I ended up making an extra crust, just the same 500 grams flour and everything else, because I realized my filling is a lot and I wanted to make as much meat pie as I possibly can. I'm going to bake my meat pie on a sheet pan, so I'm getting it ready by dusting some flour on it. This is going to prevent it from sticking onto your pan, and you trying to lift it off it is going to cause it to break apart. This dough, you have to remember, or your crust is very rich, so you want to do this. Sometimes I also just put parchment paper so I don't have to do this flouring process. Now let's set this aside and get our chilled dough from the fridge. Unwrap it, and if possible, cut the dough into 2 or even 4 so that you work on portions, because the main reason you chilled it is for you not to have it rolled out whilst it's not cold, and that is also why I brought out just one at a time. So you want to finish working on one before you bring out more.
Tasty. Delicious.
Roll out your crust to be as thin as possible. You want your pie crust to be not too thick, and I'm using a pie cutter to cut this, but you can use any lid or any round container that can just cut through the dough would do. I'm going to get my cut out dough out by first lifting the portion that is not cut out, set that aside, and gently lift the ones that I have cut up. I'm actually going to stack this, so I'm going to cut everything, and once I'm done, I'll go ahead and fill it. I'm just applying a little bit of flour just so they don't stick together, and then you just continue to pile them on top. I'm going to repeat this process until all my dough is cut out, and then we'll continue with the filling. This I find to be very, very efficient. It helps me to do it faster. That's what I think. But if you think it's just easier for you, then you can just cut out and fill and cut out and fill until everything is done. It's just totally up to you. What you think works better and faster for you is what you would do.
Delicious. Delicious, yeah, yeah, delicious, da da. Delicious, yeah, yeah, delicious, da da da. Delicious, delicious, da da. Delicious, yeah, yeah, delicious. Can you smell the aroma, yeah? From Kwankyewaa's kitchen, yeah. Da da. Delicious, yeah, yeah, delicious, da da. Delicious, yeah, yeah, delicious, da da da. Delicious.
All my pie crust is cut up now and ready to be assembled into my actual pie. I've cracked 1 egg that I'm mixing now to get it to be very well combined. And then we are going to start off by applying a little bit of the egg to the edges of my pie crust, just like this. This is going to help your pie crust to seal when you press it together. My filling at this point has cooled off beautifully. As you can see, it is still very moist, and I'm going to just scoop some onto my crust just like this. You want to load it up as much as you possibly can. This is meat pie, not air pie. So I'm actually going to approximate now, just like that. And I like to just use my index finger to just cause some indentations just to press it. That is how I'm going to get the edges to be sealed. You can use a fork if that's what you want, but I'm just used to using my finger. It can be a little tricky, so use a fork if you want it to be easier. And I always like to just use a knife to just tuck everything back in, because once you make those indentations or you press, you end up making your edges a little bit rough. So using a knife or anything that will help you to just press on it and make it nice and shapely again is advised. Presentation always matters. first done, and I'm going to just set this now on my baking sheet, which I dusted with flour, just like that. Repeat the process until everything is done.
Can you smell the aroma? Yeah. From Kwankyewaa's kitchen. Yeah. Delicious. Yeah. Delicious. Delicious. Yeah. Delicious. 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 Yeah. Delicious. Have you been go? Tasty.
Once all your pie is done being shaped, you want to use a fork to make some holes on the top part of your pie, just like this. This is going to allow your pies to vent when you bake it. It is going to make it vent, but it's also decorative, so try to do it in a beautiful manner as much as you can.
Can you smell the aroma? Yeah. From Kwankyewaa's kitchen. Yeah. Delicious.
Once you're done making your holes for venting, you want to apply some of your egg on the top of your pie, just like this. This is going to allow your pie to become golden when it is baked, and also with a very glossy, beautiful shine to it. I have my oven being pre-warmed to 360 degrees Fahrenheit, and once this is done, I'm just going to put it in the oven to bake for 30 minutes. So here's the rest of my pies that did not fit the other tray. They are here. I'm just coating with some egg as well, and this is going to go in the oven with the first one for that 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, pies are out. Beautiful, smells amazing. Just look at how perfect they turned out to be. That glossy look, beautiful golden surface. I'm just going to transfer these right away into my serving dish. You can let it cool off first, but I wanted to serve this hot. Just look at that. I know this Christmas is just going to be amazing if you try this recipe. Now let's break into one and see how we did. Just look at this. Just gorgeousness. It is very, very juicy and moist. The vegetables in here are so perfectly cooked, nowhere close to being overcooked. You see real pieces of beef in here, not ground beef. I don't know why it took me this long to make it this way. This is what I remember from my childhood, and this meat pie just took me back to those days growing up in Obuasi, getting meat pie from AGC Sports Club canteen. Oh, it was just amazing. You need to try this to even understand. This Christmas, let all your gatherings have something phenomenal, something that all your guests are going to just ask you for the recipe. Hopefully they ask you for the recipe and not say make it for them all the time. This is the kind of meat pie you only share when you want to have trouble, because once they taste it, they're going to ask you for it and you will have to do the work. Unless you give them this recipe. Well, so give it to them so you don't have to do it all yourself. My husband just loved this. And we got a lot of people coming to our house who ate it as well. Everybody loves it. So, and they've all had my previous recipes except for one. She doesn't even know what she's saying, but she thinks she agrees with everybody that this is just the truth. So please try it. If you've tried my previous recipe, let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching. Kindly give me a thumbs up and share. Just look at this one more time. Just look at how perfect, just perfect. Everybody's just going to be so in love with this. Please, please, please try it. Just don't watch. I want you to try it. If this is your first time watching me, my name is Kwankyewaa. Making simple, replicable meals is what truly makes my heart happy. And guys, we almost got a ling and lamb moment here. He just loved it so much, he just had to lay back. I was like, you should as well just turn your hat to be like lamb. This is good. I hope you're able to try it. Kindly give me a thumbs up and share. And until I come your way next time with something delicious, be loving, be kind, be happy.